protection, management and planning instruments related to the presence of water in the landscape. And I will, okay, good morning. Do you hear me now? Okay. So we will start with our workshop number 3. My name is Liv Kirstine Just Mortensen. I'm from Norway. And together with me, I have Mr. Enrico Burgess from Switzerland. And you want to say something to introduce this workshop number 3. Thank you.
Presenti, j'espère que ça joue. Mesdames et messieurs, chers collègues, chers amis, permettez-moi d'exprimer quelques considérations personnelles sur les ateliers du Conseil de l'Europe pour la mise en œuvre de la Convention européenne du paysage. Nous avons aujourd'hui, il me semble, le 22e atelier, un travail énorme. J'aimerais faire les compliments à Maguelone de Jampons pour l'organisation de tous ces ateliers dans toutes ces années, presque 20 ans, 19 ans que la Convention européenne du paysage est en vigueur, et remercier tous ceux qui ont participé aussi à organiser l'atelier d'aujourd'hui. Mesdames et messieurs, ces réunions ont pour objet d'approfondir des thématiques concrètes concernant les dispositions mentionnées dans la Convention. Elle traite des politiques paysagères ou de l'intégration du paysage dans les politiques sectorielles lorsqu'il s'agit de promouvoir le respect des principes paysagers dans le cadre des mesures inhérentes à ces politiques. Les réunions constituent une occasion de présenter différentes approches et méthodologies, ainsi que des réalisations concrètes. Elles permettent d'échanger des connaissances et de découvrir de nouvelles expériences. Ce volet concerne l'approfondissement des connaissances. Par ailleurs, ces réunions permettent aux participants de partager leur expérience et de retourner à leur propre activité professionnelle en constatant que d'autres collègues et amis rencontrés sont également confrontés à des problèmes similaires ou analogues dans le cadre des travaux de mise en œuvre de la Convention. Les débats contribuent ainsi à renforcer l'esprit de solidarité entre les participants. Ces volets peuvent être qualifiés de volets de l'âme. Ces deux volets forment un ensemble intellect et cœur, avec un effet positif sur toute notre activité professionnelle. J'aimerais aborder brièvement un tout autre aspect qui concerne le rapport qui existe entre le paysage et les droits de l'être humain. Existe-t-il, en effet, un droit de vivre dans un site ayant une bonne ou au moins une suffisante qualité paysagère au sens de la Convention européenne du paysage? Il apparaît que la Convention est étroitement liée aux principes essentiels des droits de l'homme ou des droits de l'être humain. Certains arrêts de la Cour européenne des droits de l'homme se sont d'ores et déjà attachés à considérer des cas d'atteinte portée à l'environnement. Dans la mesure où la Convention traite de la dimension territoriale des droits de l'homme, il est important de souligner cet effet positif pour la société. Les politiques adoptées pour sa mise en œuvre contribuent à améliorer la qualité de vie, en particulier dans les paysages périurbains et ruraux, lesquels nécessitent, nous le savons, en maintes régions, un engagement accru. Merci de votre attention. Nous passons maintenant la parole à Madame Cristina Kinches, qui nous parlera du thème « L'eau dans la stratégie nationale du paysage en Hongrie » et le paysage dans la stratégie de l'eau hongroise. Je vous prie. Merci.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, we are going to speak about the landscape in the national water strategy and the water in the national landscape strategy. But I have a PPT presentation, so I cannot find. The Hungarian government, oops. Okay. The Hungarian government approved the National Landscape Strategy for in 2017, and the National Water Strategy was approved in the same year based on a second river basin management plan. The entire administrative area of settlements, including water bodies, are considered to be a part of the landscape in accordance with the European Landscape Convention. It is important to emphasize that the landscape is an operating system, so not only the visible surface water bodies should be taken into account in planning and policymaking, but the entire water regime also, including groundwater bodies. There is a close interaction between landscape and water. Hungary delineated the terrestrial and aquatic water-dependent ecosystems according to the Water Framework Directive. The next step could be mapping water-dependent landscapes. The overall objective of the National Landscape Strategy is responsible land use based on landscape configuration and assets. Proper landscape management based on landscape configuration and assets contributes to the reduction of the risk of flood and excess water, as well as drying, which helps important environmental, economic, and social interests to prevail. To achieve the overall objective, the following horizontal principles must be ensured during the implementation of the National Landscape Strategy. General protection of natural resources and cultural heritage, wise and rational use of areas, the mitigation of the impact of climate change, and adaptation to it. There are three headline targets: laying the foundations for land use based on landscape configuration and assets, livable landscape, livable settlement, wise land use, and the third, enhancing landscape identity. In Hungary, the spatial and temporal distribution of precipitation is uneven, and contribution to the runoff within the country borders is low, resulting in unequal geographic and temporal distribution of surface water resources. This is why groundwater is also an important source of water utilization in Hungary, for example, to meet communal or bathing water needs, and partly for irrigation. nowadays there are many signs that aridification is a significant water management issue in Hungary. Nature conservation authorities reported that drying out is one of the main problems on protected areas. According to hydrological reports, some springs have dried out, the base flow of several streams has decreased, groundwater level has dropped, and areas of shallow lakes and wetlands have shrunk. The increasing severity of droughts is propagating losses in agriculture, which has multiplied farmers' demand for irrigation. Integrated studies on climate and land use have shown that both water abstraction and climate change have had an impact on water resources. The National Water Strategy, as its first strategic task, defines water retention and more efficient water use and integrated management of water resources to support sustainable development. The National Landscape Strategy, the National Water Strategy, and River Basin Management Plans have important recognitions and commitments on water management. The so-called city climate is primarily the consequence of the lack of water balance due to the high ratio of paved surfaces, the change emission conditions due to the higher heat conductivity, and the heat capacity of paved surfaces compared to natural surfaces and the airflow that change due to the buildings. The emissions from intensive human activities contribute to this. The negative effects of the city climate are most perceptible in densely built city areas, built cities, and mainly in paved city centers with only few green surfaces and along main roads. Keeping and using rainwater both in settlement and on arable lands must be integrated through increasing water infiltration and enhancing the replenishment of soil water and groundwater. Keeping rainwater is also important for improving the urban climate through establishing rain gardens or urban lake systems, using the natural water retention capability of the landscape. Just leaving excess water inundation on the land could be cost-effective climate change mitigation and adaptation measures in Hungary. By setting up rainwater management systems that facilitate infiltration and the establishment of green infrastructure, the first 20 millimeters of rainfall must be locally kept and used for replenishment of overexploited water resources and soil moisture. The National Landscape Strategy sets out approximately 100 actions, of which the following is worth mentioning. Setting quality objectives related to areas having high probability of being flooded, and integrating these quality objectives into the regional and local development plans and land use plans. The National Landscape Strategy, the National Water Strategy, and the River Basin Management Plans will only play their role if the currently missing horizontal aspects and key actions are integrated into other policies on the basis of holistic approach in the next review. And now I would like to give the floor to Agnes, who will explain that photo.
I would like to talk about only on these pictures. What you can see here, a wandered landscape. What you cannot see here, a soil, a 1 meter thick Chernozem snow. Even this basement sediment is the best in Hungary, where you can have a very good fertility soils. It disappeared recently. So what we think that is a terrible situation in a lot of places in Hungary where urgent activity should be done to give back the fertility for the area. And even not only this is the problem, but this organic material which is missing here is in the river right now, and we have to act as water managers to clean the waters. And if there is no healthy catchment area, then we cannot get healthy waters as well. Also, this ecosystem would be very important to stock the CO2 from the air as a climate change adaptation instrument of everywhere in the world. Also, this missing soil cannot bind fertilizers, and this way the fertilizers which was used by this farmer will wash down to the surface water and to the groundwater instead of growing healthier plants. So there are a lot of methodology to build soil and make a better management of sustainable soil management. So what we can say that this is a very good pictures about where you can think globally but act locally.
At last, I would like to show the planning scheme of Hungary, just to see the connection between strategies, and we would like to ask for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christina and Agnes, for this very informative about Hungary and the situation there. And now we give the floor to Ms. Zanja Lekovic-Mitrovic, who will talk about the special plan for coastal areas of Montenegro. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, dear colleagues. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will today present Coastal Area Special Plan of Montenegro, which is adopted last summer, finally, because we work on them almost 5 years. Actually, we work first 2.5 years on preparatory works, and I will show through the presentation. I will try to briefly go through the slide, and who is interested in the content can find on the web page Council of Europe. Here is some basic information about Montenegro, and you will see that almost 1/4 of the citizens live in the coastal area. This is the coast of Montenegro. There is 6 municipalities, and before the working on the coastal area special plan, all of that municipalities have their separate special plans, and they was not synchronized. They have different approaches and different politics of the dealing with the space, and because of that we have huge pressure actually because of investments during the last decade, but also because of the different approaches from municipality to municipality and different dealing with the landscape. And for example, you will see here is a Boka Bay, UNESCO heritage. And if you see Peninsula Luštica, which will be the case study in my presentation, you will see that municipality of Herceg-Novi protected one side of the Peninsula Luštica, and municipality of Tivat give a huge development on the other side of the Peninsula Luštica. And because of that, we make decision to make and work seriously on analysis, first on analysis, and after that on the adoption and preparation and adoption of the coastal area special plan. Here is also some basic information about the coastal area, Montenegrin coast, about the beaches, about the municipalities. And Boka Kotorska Bay is a really very important place for Montenegro, actually for the Europe and for the world, because of unique landscape and UNESCO protection from 1979, because of exceptional natural, cultural, and landscape value and universal value. Very important moment in developing of and also implementation of the convention is 13th Council of Europe meeting on Cetinje. Thematic is the future of the territories, landscape identification and assessment. Before that period, we never have a real analysis of the landscape and mapping of the landscape in Montenegro, and that different approaches and presentation support us to start to work first on the mapping of the landscape of coastal area, and after that for whole territory of Montenegro. Our study visit was, of course, on Boka Kotorska Bay UNESCO Heritage. And this is from the Convention chapter, which is dealing with identifying and mapping, analyzing the characteristic of the landscape and mapping the landscape. After that, we produce also very important document that is manual for landscape planning in Montenegro. And in this manual, we also make the methodology for the landscape identification and also for the landscape taxation for the projects. And the pilot project for the implementation of the manual was actually special plan for coastal area. Here is some also chapter text about the manual, also tools, and second important moment is adoption of national strategy for integration coastal area management, which give us the guidelines for the producing of the coastal area special plan and recognize what is the problem with space consumption, optimizing the purpose of the area, reducing conflict, use the sensitivity of space to smallest extent, regulation of construction in a narrow coastal strip, coastal distance, Barcelona, implementation of Barcelona Convention, and preservation and development of rural areas, which are actually still starting to abandon and depopulated. First step was identifying and mapping of landscape Montenegro for the preparation of coastal plan. Here is some picture of our landscape in coastal area. Key problem was, I already mentioned, non-critical urbanization, tourist capacities, insufficient in qualitative sense. There was not space for the social service, for the public space, especially during the last decade of development. Problems with the traffic and infrastructure, also problems with the traffic in the Boka Bay UNESCO heritage with strict UNESCO rules, and during the summer months we have a huge mess with the traffic in the Boka Bay. Insufficient beach capacities, and poor municipal equipment for urban centers. Here is some development projects which are already implemented in Montenegro. One of them we have opportunity to visit, that is the Porto Montenegro in Tivat. There was an old military marine, with huge ecological risk. After that, we have now Porto Montenegro, the huge touristic marine on Mediterranean, on that part of Mediterranean. Also Porto Novi, but there was not only this kind of development of our coast. We will see on next slide. Also, there is coastal area is very important biodiversity center. 33 monuments of nature protected by law. 20 beaches are also protected by law. Special 3 areas with special natural characteristic, and one new protected that is a Tivat Salina, that is a salina, all the banded salina nearby the Tivat, and that is all Ramsar area protected in 2008. Also, cultural heritage in the coastal area is made up of historical towns, and you will see on in the presentation old town Ulcinj, old town Perast, old town Budva, St. Stefan Island, which is a town hotel, also protected, and of course Kotor. Coastal area also have a special landscape value, and there is different types of the landscape, and we will see from the River Bojana on the border with Albania with the Ada Island, which is also protected, to Kotor and through the part of nearby the Tivat, which is Vrmac. We work on the project few years ago together with Croatia about the valorization of landscape in that area. Here is some kind of, not some kind, but it is a huge problem in Montenegro coastal area. There is land management because during the 19 years of 20th century, Montenegro adopted the law that building area or land use for the building and completely liberalized ownership of the property in Montenegro, and in that period we started with huge urbanization. Slowly. Okay, I will go further. And after that start the building of the flats, buying of real estate in Montenegro, and here is a real example of our analysis how this gray area is builded area. This yellow area is planned area, which is 20 times bigger than builded area, and that was a space for the future land development and for the real estate market. Of course, that was one of the hugest problems, and the task of the special plan for coastal area was to reduce that building area, to preserve the landscape, unique value, and to preserve the identity of the landscape in that area. Of course, we respect the principle of balance of territory. Objectives of producing the plan was introduction of actually to set up the principles which are equal for all 6 municipalities, of course recognizing the difference between the landscape in that 6 municipality, harmonization of the development and traffic, and stop to stop all the trends what I show before in special planning. First time we make a mapping of the climate changes with all characteristics. First time we do general vulnerability assessment with pollution and detailed vulnerability assessment in narrow coastal zone. Here is some example of, for the Luštica, for vulnerability assessment. First time we are mapping build assessment. Actually, we use the orthophoto recording and to recognize the building area. I will in 1 minute. And of course, we make types of landscape characters. Make open space concept, and here is a landscape character assessment with all the types of landscape. And plan was finished and adopted last summer, which is important. The final result is creation of strategic document for the organization and arrangement of this really valuable space, but also we obtaining the guidelines. What is very important, and this is the last 3 slides, the plan provides space use regimes. And the plan defines the following regimes, which are cultural heritage, open rural areas, marina well, coastal distance, first time in Montenegro, application of Barcelona Convention. That distance line is 100 meters. That is non-construction area from the sea. And coastal belt, 1,000 meters. Where is the regime that we don't have in the future new building area for the housing? Actually, we can develop only tourism settlements in that 100 area. Here is the coastal belt with all this regime. And really important, first time in this special planning document, we make 2 different types of green corridors, which are strict and flexible. That is also preserving the landscape stripped area, which is connecting the sea with the rural area. Concept of rural development we make, and a landscape plan with landscape categories, which we mapping in GIS, all different types of the landscape categories. And of course, this plan will provide many different good things for developing of the coastal area. And because I don't have time more, you can read that in the presentation on our website. Thank you for your attention. I try to be really short. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Lieskovic, pour cette présentation de Monténégro. Nous passons maintenant à une présentation de la Grèce. Concernant la Grèce, le thème, c'est les plans, vers les plans de paysage marin de qualité. Et c'est Madame Stella Sofia Kivelou qui ira nous présenter ce projet. Vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much. Buenos dias, bonjour. I would like to warmly thank Magellan de Jean Pons for inviting me to attend and contribute to this very interesting meeting. Unfortunately, I did not have the possibility to attend another similar meeting in the past. This is strange. I will not speak about Greece. I will speak about a new realm of the realm of maritime spatial planning in Europe and all over the world. I thought that speaking about quality marine landscapes and seascapes is about integrating quality landscapes and seascapes in marine and maritime spatial planning. And I will try to focus, I focus on mainly on policy implications. Some key definitions and structure and the structure of my presentation is the one you see there. I will focus on our understanding, first of all, of conservation, which is changing, and then what is blue growth, what is MSP, maritime spatial planning, the MSP nature and some progresses, and then about the quality landscapes, seascapes, and according to different MSP approaches, and finally how to integrate. We have already spoke yesterday about colleagues more specialists than me have spoken about underwater landscapes and from Finland. And it is important how to integrate underwater landscapes and marine landscapes in MSP. And then some key challenges and policy recommendations will follow. Well, about our understanding of conservation, I think this is important. Prior to the 60s, the meaning of conservation was mainly nature for itself. So humans were considered separate from the environment with areas of wilderness locked away in reserves. We know the many reserves created in those years. Over the turn of the century, we have a transition from the nature despite people avoiding extinction and loss of species was the focus, to nature for people, where the value of ecosystem services, which is a central concept, was recognized and explored. And so the focus is no longer on isolated reserve islands in a landscape. Instead, we recognize the need to create shared landscapes between people and nature with strong emphasis on maintaining ecological processes, adaptability, and resilience in these social ecological systems. Landscape, permit me to say, is a social ecological system. Generally speaking, the hazards, the threats that landscapes and seascapes face are due to the blue growth trend for high productivity, because blue growth is not so bad. But if it is for high productivity without taking care of other social and cultural factors, it is dangerous. And also the factors that are linked to the climate change. But what is blue growth, finally? The blue growth thinking has its origin in the idea that maritime economic activities cannot be sufficiently developed through a sectoral approach, but rather through a holistic management of complex marine social ecological systems. The blue growth considers the perspective of maritime functions. Thus, a total of 6 broad functions have been distinguished, and you see there that blue growth thinking and some of the marine functions are directly linked with protection, management, and planning of landscape. Besides, the roots of blue growth are in sustainable development, and everything comes from green growth. That is, the blue growth comes from green growth, finally, which is fostering economic growth and development while ensuring that natural assets continue to provide the resources and environmental services on which our well-being relies. Blue growth and landscape thinking, in my opinion, are not incompatible. And landscape protection is a prerequisite for developing promising maritime sectors where there is a great potential for new jobs and growth, for example, tourism. What is MSP? Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, published in 2014, issued, defined MSP as a process by which the relevant member states authorities analyze and organize human activities in marine areas to achieve ecological, economic, and social objectives. It is directly linked with the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, issued the environmental pillar of the maritime spatial planning. And as everybody knows, the Maritime Strategy Framework Directive aims to achieve good environmental status in European marine waters by 2020. And this is very important. What is MSP finally, from a more functional point of view? It is the strategic placement of human activities at the sea so as to achieve the regulation, management, protection of the marine environment in such a way as to mitigate, if not to minimize, conflicts and negative effects on the marine ecosystem and to increase synergies. In recent years, MSP is gaining increasing importance as a new planning and management procedure is a must for an integrated ecosystem-based management of marine areas which are partially considered as a continuation, and this is also important for landscape, of the land, and focus is being put on land-sea interactions. There is literature, there is research on land-sea interactions, on the land-sea interface, etc. There are very rapid progress in MSP. It experiences an intense and dynamic growth. Several practices have emerged from different continents, from different countries. Integrated marine spatial plans have been implemented by about 20 countries, and by 2030, at least 1/3 of the surface area of the world's exclusive economic zones will have government-approved marine spatial plans. MSP is in the process of legal transposition is almost completed of the directive, and the marine spatial planning initiatives are expanding rapidly. Well, MSP acquires now a legal status as a terrestrial spatial planning. It is linked to the management of coastal zones, and there you can see the protocol of the ICSDM protocol makes a direct reference to landscape. Land-sea interaction emphasized by the EU territorial agenda also towards territorial cohesion. So we would say that landscape is just as important for marine planning as for terrestrial planning. There is a need, examining the challenges, we'd say that there is a need to develop territorial planning techniques in maritime space, including cohesion, place-based approaches, participatory planning, and of course landscape planning, which is absent for the moment. It's very indirect, you know. MSP is a regulating tool, and it must be used to decide what mix of outputs of goods and services from the marine space should be produced over time and space. And in this context, the convention-related landscape, seascape approach can have, in my opinion, an important weight. Well, you can see here, this is a place-based, the participatory, a multi-objective, a strategic and future-oriented process, an ecosystem-based, continuing and adaptive, government-led. And all these have several links with landscape planning. The challenge here, linked to ecosystem-based approach, is how to explicitly integrate landscape, seascape protection, planning, and management in MSP. There are many initiatives, but there is no explicit reference to, especially in the Mediterranean, about the landscape. About opportunities and challenges, landscape seascape planning should be envisaged as part of a wider planning and management process, achieving consistency between terrestrial and maritime landscape planning. It's important because because of the ICSDM. Terrestrial and maritime landscape plans should be coordinated. Participatory procedures should be ensured, incorporating the future the question of monitoring and evaluating plans is crucial. How to raise awareness and mainly cooperation for planning in cross-border areas and ensure local support by well-designed local institutions. Some concluding remarks. MSP is now recognized as a key political tool, both for the implementation of development goals related to the sea and oceans, and the sustainability and ecosystem management approaches. However, the key challenge across Europe remains how this will be operational and have practical results. Social and cultural dimensions, especially in peopled and in insular areas, for example, and crowded seas, are mostly discussed but officially neglected. Opening the discussion about marine quality landscape plans will certainly enrich the agenda of MSP with social and cultural dimensions, considerations, and with smart, creative, and cohesive aspects of MSP. Some other challenges are how to reconcile and balance, let's say, the blue growth trend with landscape, seascape preservation, how to upgrade the economic value, how valuing in general culturally significant areas in order to make conservation and enhancement of landscape quality a priority in MSP, because if there is economic value, then it will be a priority, how to adapt to the climate change effects. In our lab, we are very much working on a new concept, the analog, if you like, of the territorial cohesion, which is maritime cohesion, and means also this balance between marine spatial efficiency, marine spatial quality, marine spatial identity. And you can see here the great part that landscape has in these dimensions. Well, this is also a suggestion. I would propose to create the marine landscape architect and planner because there is a specific training ongoing. Also, MSP is tailor-made, is specific, context-specific. So designing effective education and training in marine landscape planning with regard to underwater and maritime landscapes is important, and the professional certification of a marine landscape architect planner should be envisaged. What can planners do? Well, landscapes, seascapes can be safeguarded only if they are included in sustainable management and blue growth plans, so there is a need for holistic and integrated approaches. Here, it is very important to do surveys, to have the opinion of the fishermen, of everybody, to do surveys, to do participatory planning. Thank you for your attention. And permit me to remind you the Heraclitus ta πάντα ρί και ουδέν μένει, that is, everything flows, which is very relevant for the sea and for the evolution that I think can be addressed also in integrating landscape thinking in MSP. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting thing you presented for us. And I think a lot of us will go and look further on the website where all the presentation will come, and you can look deeper into it when you come home. So thank you. And then we go over to the coastal and marine landscape, presented by Mr. Daniel Vadala from, yes, no, I missed which country, but that's okay.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, please let me bring you all the greetings from the office which I represent here today. That is a specific office of the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, the Italian Ministry of Cultural Heritage. Our office is landscape protection services, maybe translated something like this, tutela del paesaggio in Italian. And so let me think at my colleagues, a group of 18 architects, barely each for every Italian region, and several administrative assistants. And especially I would like to thank Maguelone de Jompon for this invitation, that it is not the first between with our office, and bring the greetings from Roberto Banchini, especially the head of our service, and Maria Maddalena Alessandro, who cares so much for this initiative from a long time ago, and also Manuela Pratico, that could not be here today with me due to organizational reasons of the office. Just a little element I would like to make you note. The title is Protection and Valorization of Coastal and Fluvial Landscapes. So I have introduced a rather different point of view, differently from the one that is in the program due to my delay in sending the final title. So consider this as the real title of the presentation. That is important. It's quite important difference, because my intention today is to show how coastal and fluvial landscapes are, especially in Italy, I would say, strictly linked. Let me just spend a few minutes for explaining how our Directorate General Archaeology, Fine Arts and Landscape works. It works with 39 superintendencies that have the territorial knowledge, and in coordination with pardon me, with our office, exercite on behalf of the Italian citizens the function of protection, of tutela. Let me tell you the right Italian word. And you can see that Sicily has not local superintendencies. It's not strange, because in 1974 Sicily had a kind of autonomous administration of the cultural heritage. Unfortunately, because of course Sicily is part of Italy. Anyway, this doesn't mean. Thank you so much. This doesn't mean that Sicily, the administration of cultural heritage in Sicily, has not quite interesting value. And please, again, let me remember a person that is Sebastiano Tusa, who is an underwater archaeologist. And unfortunately, he is no more with us, because in the crash, and the air crash in Addis Abeba, he has lost his life. But I want to remember him because he created the superintendency of the sea. You see, that's on the T-shirt. I would like to share this vision from Sebastiano, because maybe can be shared also in a wider Mediterranean or Baltic or North Sea perspective. The idea, of course, is that underwater management. Yesterday, our Finnish colleagues addressed a quite interesting question: what could be your own underwater management? So I would like to show this example of a quite clear idea of underwater management that comprised not simply, of course, the archaeological underwater remains, but all the artifacts that are linked to the coastal economy, just like the salt facilities we saw also yesterday in the presentation by Mr. Marin, or the tuna. Just think about the tuna facilities that, together with the salt, what a quite interesting resource in the past of Sicily. Then, please, I would like to show a few hints about how the landscape is part of our constitution, of the Constitution of the Italian Republic of 1948. The Republic promotes the development of culture and the scientific and technical research. It preserves, it protects the landscape and the historical and artistic heritage of the nation. So of the nation, not of the several regions of Italy, but all the Italian citizens. And let me tell you, European, on behalf of European citizens, probably. And also, of course, we are committed. This is, you see, the Code of Cultural Heritage and Landscape, which in 2004 gave a complete framework to several. Oh, yeah, thank you. It gave a more structured framework to the several law concerning cultural heritage. And especially you can see how it is addressed the International Convention on the Protection and Valorization of the Landscape, of course, the European Landscape Convention. On the second comma, you can see also how these competencies in protecting landscape are shared with regard to the application of the convention. It is, let's say, you can read between the lines that the regions is not explicitly written, but the meaning is that the regions, all the competencies of the regions are, together with those of the state, concur to the protection of the landscape. And this is the first significant definition of landscape heritage in Italy that comes from a law of 1939, but is still existing. And so you can see several categories which makes us help us in giving definitions of how a given landscape can be a cultural object that deserves protection. But more important, there is also another definition of landscape assets that, as you can see, is a wide range of elements. And in the first three elements are the coastal territories adjacent to the lakes, and the rivers, streams, and watercourses. We have also wetlands, volcanoes, and so on. Lucio Gambi remembers us the variety of the Italian landscape, and this has a direct implication in the physical feature of the peninsula that is crossed by an enormous number of river basins. Here you can see the river basins authorities. You see the major, like the Po River, also the Piave River in Veneto, but especially it's not easy to to read directly, in places like Calabria, Sicily, or Sardinia, there are a lot of small basins that cannot be represented at this scale. So just I would like to show you a few. We don't have so much time, but I would like to show you some, this small dimension of the Italian landscape, of Italian physiographic features, and how the water can be rightly managed. This is a case study of the Magra River in Tuscany. It comes, this study, from an agreement between our office and the University of Firenze, and is in course of publication. You can see the basins of Magra and Vara that then converge in a single basin before going to the sea. There are areas of great naturality, and there are, starting from this case of study, several suggestions that can be drawn for ameliorating how the river works. It's a physical feature and its functional elements, starting from the riverbed, the restoration of the riverbed that very often was injured by embankments, rigid barriers, something like this. Of course, the concept of functional mobility corridor in these cases is really crucial. So restoring the functional mobility of the river. And this is the example taken from the Magra River, general management strategies that can be started, especially conservative action, not necessarily linked to strong intervention, but also ameliorative actions, in order to finishing kind of way of working with rivers that was based on weirs and rigid weirs, conventional weirs, in favor of more selective weirs, wooden weirs. This is another study that comes from an agreement between our office and the University of Perugia that is linked to the riverbank protection thanks to live and unfertile branches that step by step can be substituted by living material. Just, it's a huge study we produced. There is not the time to see it specifically, but you see the concept is that there is a sweet way of dealing with rivers, with the functionality of rivers. Another example is in the south between Basilicata and Calabria, is the Noce River. The intervention here was conducted on the terminal part, and because there, in the Tyrrhenian Sea there have been several sea storms, and especially some destructive floods. 300 meters of seashore were lost in 2000, and the seashore in this part came outside, in this part came inside, near the mouth of the river. So in this case, the technique was simply to lower the weirs and restoring the course of the river, and at the same time starting beach nourishments in several phases. Tropea Seacoast, many of you know well this place. And this is a coastal protection that, starting from here, gave the possibility to reinforce this natural bank and avoiding erosion. This is a project that was suggested by a superintendency of Reggio Calabria some years ago. And then finally, just a few images of this very interesting intervention on the Sia coast in Sardinia. These are sick areas, special conservation areas, and this LIFE program gave the possibility to permit the people going to the beach without injuring the dunal system, and also enhancing the dunal system. The dune habitats is, yeah, I'm going to finish. Rafting units, rather quite interesting techniques. That is not the moment to go deep inside. And also guaranteeing pedestrian access to the beach. And it can be, it can happen, it will happen this summer, that one major pop artist, that is Lorenzo Giovanotti, I don't know if someone of you heard it, decided pardon me, to start a tour all along the beaches of Italy. Some selected places, of course, chosen positively for this event, according also to the advice of superintendencies of the Italian Ministry of Cultural Heritage. Thank you so much.
Merci, Monsieur Vadala, pour cette présentation concernant les travaux qu'on est en train de faire en Italie. La prochaine intervention concernant la République du Bélarus, malheureusement, ne peut pas avoir lieu. Et par cette présentation se termine donc la première partie de l'atelier 3. Je vous remercie, nous vous remercions pour votre attention. Il y aura maintenant la pause café. Merci beaucoup.